Perhaps it will be nothing, as we cross our fingers and we hope we will not face a nuclear war. But right now, over at Fortune, probability of Russia using tactical nuclear weapons is very high, says Ukraine intel chief as Putin raises the stakes with annexation. Could this be bluster? Ukraine desperately wants more money out of our pockets, so they're going to keep screaming nuclear annihilation so that we keep paying? I don't know. What I can say is we've got a lot of big news this morning. Vladimir Putin has made the official move to annex 4 Ukrainian territories. We've got some very strange stories pertaining to the potential threat of nuclear war. From Politico, the age of predatory nuclear weapon states has arrived. Putin's nuclear threat marks the start of a new era. CNN, the most likely nuclear scenario. And don't forget, New York put out a PSA in July on how to survive a nuclear strike. Now, why is that? Maybe it's because U.S. intelligence knew the real risk of a nuclear war, or of at least a nuclear strike. They knew the real risk and they said, we're not going to go out and tell everybody it's going to happen, but you put out some information. How many of you have ever flown commercial? I'm assuming most of you, right? In the beginning of every flight, they do one of the most annoying things ever. They tell you how to put on a seatbelt. And I find it hilarious. Dude, I know how to wear a seatbelt. I know where the exits are. I get the mask thing. I have flown before. But it's funny. There's a reason why they do it. There were studies found that when disaster strikes, the people who pay attention during that emergency review are more likely to survive or remain uninjured. And it's kind of common sense, I guess. But you'd think, dude, I can see the exit signs. I know how to put a mask on. I know how to put a seatbelt on. But sure enough, a lot of people don't. And they don't pay attention. They're twiddling their thumbs. So while you or I we may have the cognitive faculties required to survive in the event of a disaster. I mean, obviously, if a plane crashes, you're going to be in trouble. But there are other things like, an engine could blow out or there's like a depressurization, things like that. So why put out a PSA on how to survive a nuclear strike in New York? Because perhaps they're thinking the likelihood of such a strike the likelihood is existent. We'll put it that way. There is even a small probability. You go to the casino, you make a crazy bet. You ever play craps? You say, let me get $5 on yo. What you're basically saying is $5 that the next roll will be 11. Yeah, it's not a good bet. But if you win a lot of money. In this instance, the likelihood that the bet pays out when you're warning people about a nuclear strike may be low, but you can't win if you don't make that bet. So what I think that U.S. intelligence does expect there will be, or at least there's a high enough probability of a nuclear strike happening, that they said even if it's 0.01, if there are people who don't know what to do, show it. It will increase the survival rate by even a small fraction. Why not? Because otherwise it makes no sense. I mean, I suppose it may be just local city budget in New York and they're like, we got the money. Why not do it? Let's go back to this first story. The probability of Russia using tactical nukes is very high, says Ukraine intel chief. You want to know why I take this one seriously? I do not believe this is an instance of Ukraine trying to shock us into giving them more money for 2 reasons. First, we are already giving them everything. They don't need to say anything. But secondly, this actually would reduce the likelihood we'd give them money. Saying outright that nuclear weapon use the likelihood of it is very high, you're going to get Americans being like, whoa, maybe we should back off from this. I don't think there's anything to gain. I mean, I guess you roll the die. You're hoping that scaring Americans with the fear of nuclear weapons will be like, we got to stop Putin before he nukes. But any sane person is going to be like, this is Ukraine, not Russia. We're not invading Russia. Giving you weapons will not stop them from using nukes. It will only make it worse. Fortune reports. Fears of nuclear war are mounting across the West as Russia mobilizes hundreds of thousands of troops and prepares to annex 4 regions, which they've apparently done. Russian President Vladimir Putin is planning to sign treaties to take 15% of Ukrainian territory and make a speech at a ceremony in the Kremlin today. The Kremlin claimed that all the regions overwhelmingly voted to back annexation by 99, 98, 93, and 87% respectively. Countries across the world have condemned the vote. They say, but as Ukraine arms itself once again to fight against the incoming troops, the threat of nuclear war is increasing too. and an embittered Putin losing on the battlefield may look to strike the region he claims to be liberating with tactical nuclear weapons, according to Ukrainian defense official. Vadim Skibitsky, Ukraine's deputy intelligence chief, told The Guardian that Ukraine's military intelligence has put the threat of nuclear weapons from Russia at very high. Russian military will likely target places along the front lines with lots of army personnel and equipment, key Russian centers, and critical infrastructure, Skibitsky said regarding Russia's use of nukes. Everything will depend on how the situation develops on the battlefield. The nuclear weapon Russia may be planning to use is about 100 times more powerful than the type of rockets it has used against Ukrainians so far, Skibitsky added. How would the world respond? Russia has lost as many as 80,000 troops to death or injury, by Western estimates, and has been forced to scrap its upper age limit of 40 for contractual service in the army. As protests erupt across Moscow and St. Petersburg last week, blah, 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 blah. I don't believe it. Look, I think there are protests, but, I see these videos. There's a video right now where there's a dog standing over rubble, and the dog has, like, moisture stains under its eyes. Dogs don't cry. Okay, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure dogs don't cry. They don't have the tear ducts like we do. And so they place a dog on rubble and they say, the poor dog is standing over his home. I don't care. I do not care. You will not tug at my heartstrings to convince me we should be sending weapons and risking nuclear war because a little old dog is sad. The more they put out these videos, the angrier I get and the more I will speak out against support for war in Ukraine. You want to know what would get me to or I should say, what would make me more inclined to support intervention in Ukraine? A well-reasoned argument explaining why we need to hold this territory. Seriously. Yeah, if there was a video and it was a guy saying, truthfully and honestly, Russia controls a large monopoly with Gazprom that was putting Europe at risk. It was driving up energy prices and it was straining the European economy. When we tried to offset this by building our own pipelines, Russia began to retaliate. They set up alliances to protect their interests, but this was a military escalation when it was a market competition. Say something like that, and I might be like, this is interesting. Then, once they realized they had lost, because it's true, the Ukrainian people do not want to be with Russia. Maybe in these regions, some of these people do, but Ukraine, as a sovereign nation, these people know the horrors of Russia and the Soviet Union. They did not want this. So Russia invaded. I'd be like, I hear you. That's compelling. But you know what really, really makes me angry? When they produce these fake propaganda garbage videos that are just too stupid to be believable. I'm sure some of them are real, fine. But the most annoying thing in the world is when you see like a Ukrainian guy with a cigar and he's like, hey, Putin, flicks a cigar and he's like, we're going to crush you. And then they like high five. And I'm just like, okay, dude, this is not a game. I don't want to be funding this conflict. And you've not given any legitimate justification to what's going on. None. Other than Vladimir Putin is Hitler. And now we're risking nuclear war with one of the most powerful nuclear countries, if not the most powerful nuclear country on the planet. And we're supposed to be like, gas is worth it. Yeah, how about you actually justify what you're doing? They've not. They've not. So this is what we get. Garbage propaganda. They're coming on being like, all of the Russians are angry and they don't want to be involved. Yeah, right, dude. Let me tell you, we've got a real risk of nuclear war, and it is worrying. But here we go. From the Daily Mail. Putin's TV propagandists gleefully pounce on Nord Stream conspiracy theories that West was behind sabotage, with claims that Britain sent in divers, adding to Kremlin's claim the blast was state-sponsored terrorism. I'm sorry. Conspiracy theories that the West was behind sabotage? You're not doing yourselves any favors, Western media and intelligence. You're trying to convince me that the more likely scenario is that Russia bombed its own energy pipeline and not say, I don't know, the enemies of Russia for which they are at war with? Okay, the Baltic pipe just opened up, but Russia was like, let's blow up our own pipeline. They're saying right now, the conspiracy theory is that the West, who is enemies with Russia and currently engaged in war with them, the conspiracy theory would be that they would bomb their enemy's pipeline. Laughable. The official narrative is that Russia blew up its own pipeline. Why? The Baltic pipe crosses Nord Stream. Why would Russia not, I don't know, blow up the Baltic pipeline? Because then it would guarantee their leverage. I'm sorry. Daily Mail says it's a conspiracy theory to think that the West, again, who's at war with Russia, would bomb their enemy's infrastructure. You are pathetic morons. I won't fall for this. I don't care to believe it. Call it whatever you want. You want to come out and make an impassioned plea as to why this is necessary? I'm listening. You want to claim that Russia blew itself up? I'm going to say, prove it or shut your mouths. I will not entertain nuclear conflict over your stupid and pathetic propaganda. Psychotic. And I love this one too. Oh, here's another one from Daily Mail. Who did blow up the Nord Stream gas pipelines? Russia or America? Conspiracy theories point finger of blame at President Biden amid riddle of blasts in Baltic. Pointing fingers at Biden. Okay. Joe Biden said explicitly there will not be a Nord Stream pipeline. They would put an end to it. Victoria Nuland said one way or another there will not be a pipeline. Okay. Then the pipeline blows up. Or I should say leaks. And there's explosions detected. And then these people come out and be like, probably Russia that blew up their own pipeline. Yeah. And there are truly people stupid enough to believe this. Stupid enough to believe it every step of the way. Last night on IRL, Timcast IRL, check it out. Maybe many of you haven't seen the show. We pulled up the Wikipedia page for Biden-Ukraine conspiracy theory. Oh, I love it. The conspiracy theory is that Joe Biden went to Ukraine in a quid pro quo, told them to fire a prosecutor. Otherwise, he would withhold loan guarantees. He did not have the authority to do that. It's an act of Congress, I believe. And they ended up firing the prosecutor. And the conspiracy theory is that he did it to protect his son because he was engaged in corrupt activities with Burisma. You need only remove one element from this to make it no longer a conspiracy theory, and it is just intent. Let's go over the facts. Joe Biden did go to Ukraine. He did threaten to withhold $1 billion in loan guarantees unless a prosecutor was fired. The prosecutor was fired. The prosecutor was investigating Burisma, and the action did help Hunter Biden and Burisma. The question is, did Joe Biden intend to help him? That's it. I don't care. You remove intent, it's no longer a conspiracy theory. Then I say, fine. Sounds like a conflict of interest at the very least. Or at worst, a conspiracy, corruption. How about we investigate that? It's amazing. They've lost control of the narrative, and so they're panicking like pathetic. They're panicking like, I was going to say chicken, but chickens don't panic like this. They don't. The noble rooster I will not disparage. No, it's something worse. I don't know, man. Cowering like pathetic, whiny babies. Now you've got that video going viral of Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand. And she's like, we have to deal with misinformation and disinformation because how do you stop climate change if people don't believe it's real? I don't know. Explain the truth. They don't have the truth on their side. They desperately need to lie to people in order to enact their policies. I got a solution, I got a solution for this stuff. It's called culture, building culture. This is what they're trying to do. Powerful elites, corporations, they are trying to create this woke, homogenized consensus reality. And they don't like that people like people like Steven Crowder or Jimmy Dore or Sticks Hexenhammer, they don't like that we shatter consensus reality. Now, they'd love to just ban us, but it's not so easy. So they need to try and find a way. Conspiracy theory, they say. Come on. That's what they want. They want everyone marching in lockstep like good little zombies not paying attention. Then they can do whatever they want. I have an alternate solution. Well-reasoned, well-informed decision-making. It really is that simple, isn't it? Oh, no, but then you wouldn't get to do whatever you want. Yeah. Perhaps they have no faith These people hold this disgusting ideology. They think people are too stupid. I think people aren't too stupid. I think if people were given proper access to information and you didn't lie to them all the time, they might actually be smart. But you're creating your own problem. You are breeding a generations of really dumb people. All right, well, you know what? Maybe that's why Bill Gates is like, we got to lower the population growth. Maybe the idea is artificial selection. Because it certainly does seem like everything that's going on, we remove the intent, the conspiracy theory is gone. All of the actions being taken, like telling Dutch farmers not to farm when we're facing food shortages, sterilizing kids and aborting babies, whether intentional or otherwise, there is one end here, a reduced population. So by all means, I don't care to entertain any conspiracy theories that a cabal is trying to do this. I can simply tell you, if you advocate for abortions, you'll have less people. That's just math. If you sterilize your kids, you'll have less people. That's just math. If you tell farmers not to farm when there's a food shortage coming, there will be less people. Not a conspiracy, just a fact. Now, again, if you want to call it intentional, sure, I guess. A lot of people say they're beyond thinking it's a coincidence. Probably, I mean, Bill Gates talks about wanting to do this and then it happens. Well, okay. Joe Biden comes out and he's like, there's not going to be a pipeline. I promise you that. And then there isn't one. Why should I believe it's not the United States? Insane. And the UK too. It's NATO. It's whatever. The end result is maybe we're already in World War III. What if we're already fighting the Third World War with Russia? Putin's latest provocations once again put Washington in an awful bind. And what if the reality is nuclear war is coming? And now we bring it all together and wrap it up with a neat little bow. Whatever the intention is, the end result will be less people. We've already seen about 80,000 less Russians. Well, they're not all dead, but, many are injured. What would a nuclear war do? Well, that would get rid of a lot of people, wouldn't it? So New York puts out a PSA on how to survive a nuclear blast. Why? Well, I'm not saying anyone's intending to incite nuclear war for the sake of depopulation, but a nuclear war would depopulate. And thus, you want only the strongest and smartest to survive. Everything that's happening seems to indicate a future in which there are substantially less people. Now, if you want to argue there's a cabal that intentionally wants that to happen, hey, you do that. I'm not saying that. That would be a conspiracy theory. What I am saying is that food shortages, economic crises, and war result in less people. Sterilizing kids and aborting kids literally makes less people. So what's the end result? Here's where you make your bets. All right. If there's I don't know if Vegas offers this. If I'll put it this way. If I went to Vegas and they were like, you're able to bet on population of the earth in 10 years, and I could bet a 10% reduction over 10 years, and it's the odds are 2-1. Oh, I'd bet everything. I'd just drop all the money. And it's not because of conspiracy theories. It's because you can see all of this stuff happening leads in one direction. And that direction, less people, So maybe it'll be World War III. Maybe we're in World War III. Maybe it'll be nuclear war. Somebody messaged, super chatted on IRL saying, Russia's Poseidon autonomous nuclear torpedo has a 100 megaton yield. But it's a torpedo. It's not a what would it be called? Ocean to air missile or something? You ever see those? The videos are cool. The missile shoots out of the water and then goes and then shoots off. That's really that's crazy. So is that able to airburst? I don't know. It might be. I don't know. Are torpedoes just only underwater? They also have the Satan II missile, an ICBM with a 50 megaton yield. An air burst over DC would narrowly miss us. No, we in Harper's Ferry, we might get hit by that. Yeah, I don't know if I want to find out, Probably don't want to find out. I guess you can look up on these websites to see if you'll be in the nuclear blast from an airburst ICBM, but I'd imagine they'd probably use a multiple independently targeted re-entry vehicle, which would just send a single ICBM to pepper the eastern seaboard if we really did get to that point. Now, those would be lower yield, so we'd probably be fine far away from the cities. But I guess the point I'm trying to say is get out of cities. Everything that we've seen, it is encouraging people to leave cities. Food shortages, price increases, economic damage, rioting, all of this other conflict stuff we're basically watching it. And the best thing you can do is get out of the cities. Ian brought up a good point last night. He said World War I saw Russia engage in a revolution, a civil war, essentially, and a world war. Yeah. He said, so we could see both, just like they did. Yeah. And then the United States turns into the American empire, I guess. It's a scary thought, because we certainly would not want to live under the boot of a woke cult ideology. I got another segment coming up for you at 1 p.m. I think it's going to be about Trevor Noah. There's a clip. Trevor Noah put out a video where he's like, I'm leaving the show. Thank you, everybody. And then it shows the audience, and everybody's wearing masks. And I'm like, it's September 30th, 2022. It has been almost 3 years. We are no longer, Joe Biden said the pandemic was over. The mask mandates are gone. Yet in New York, they're still doing it. Yeah, I don't want to live under the boot of some crackpot cult. But maybe we'll just get wiped out in nuclear annihilation. So there's that, I guess. So, hey, best of luck to y'all, everybody. Hopefully this is bluster, but it really, there's one question I think you should always ask as you move forward through these stories. Are there signs of de-escalation? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.